Good afternoon. Welcome to this week's Witsup Weekly Grind. Not a whole lot happening in terms of racing over the weekend, as it's kind of the start of the season. But we'll get to that in just a second. Before we get underway, I've spent all morning on Twitter and Instagram reading through all of the messages about Kobe Bryant, very, very famous basketballer who passed away in a helicopter crash along with, I believe there were 7 others, and his daughter also passed away as well. And I don't know what it is about it, but it's kind of shaken me up a little bit. And I was talking to a friend on Instagram about it. Well, we're friends in real life, but we just happen to be messaging backwards and forwards on that. It just goes to show you how precious, I guess, life is. And it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're famous or rich or whatever. These things can happen in an instant and completely change your loved one's world. So clearly I don't have any direct link to anybody who knows Kobe Bryant, but I just feel for his family, and I don't know, to lose his wife, to lose a husband and a child all at once is just, I think maybe that's what's shaking me up so much. But sending love to anyone out there who has lost anyone close to them, and yeah, hopefully they get all the love and support that they need. We'll move on to what's happening in the triathlon world. Let's head on over to Ironman 70.3 South Africa. And I guess what we were super excited to see what happened there was Flora Duffy's first race over the half distance. And it wasn't surprising. She's a fantastic athlete. We've seen her dominate in the Olympic distance over the ITU World Triathlon Series. But also, she's a monster at Xterra. She's very, very handy on a bike. She is the proof that bike handling skills can make or break a race, particularly over the shorter distance. So anyway, I was super excited to see how she would go over the half distance. She led out of the water. She was letting out the bike, but something must have happened, we think, on the bike. I haven't heard back yet as to what that was, but something slowed her down in the tail end of the bike. But then she ran, now get this, a 1:20 half marathon, which, I mean, that's a very, very handy half marathon, obviously. But when you compare it to the men's winner, I believe did a 1:15. So that, like, it's always good to be able to, like, it's hard to compare race courses or even the same race course, because the conditions can be completely different each year. But just sort of seeing in comparison as to where the men sort of what they recorded, super interesting to see. Flora Duffy 1:20 is very, very handy. And if you follow her on social media, well, if you don't follow her on social media, you should. But she basically said that was hard. Not sure she's quite in love with this distance just yet. But she got it done. The other thing that she mentioned, that getting it done early in January is hard yakka. Like I said earlier, it's the start of the season, so very hard to come out firing very early on. But she has got herself a position on the start line at the 70.3 World Champs in Taupo in New Zealand in November, so she can tick that off and then get back to concentrating on the Olympics in August this year. Second place, Emma Pallant, another second for Emma at the 70.3 South African race. And third goes to Jade Nicole. So congratulations to the top 3 women there. Sorry, I keep I'm trying a new setup here behind the scenes, and I'm just trying to see what works and what doesn't, and what I'm tapping on right now is clearly not working. So apologies if I seem a little bit distracted, but shit happens. That's what happens when you go live. Kate Somerville, thank you for... Kate's one of our big supporters. Thank you for joining in. Kudos on a public holiday, she has said. Do you know what? The reason I can do this and felt very relaxed about it is because Brett's home today. So he got Frankie to sleep. And if she didn't go to sleep, it didn't matter because he could handle all of that. So I'm cruising. This is an easy day. Jodie Gilchrist. Hi, Jodes. How are you going? She said, cute hat. This hat, I love it. Pretty okay at Bikes. I bought this hat from, it's called Ostroy. I think it's called Ostroy. I don't know what that stands for, but they are based in New York and do some really cool things. You've probably seen me in this blue, not this, but in a blue jumper that's got some BMX bandits on it, and I got it from them as well. They do some super cool stuff. Not a paid plug. That I'm not being sponsored or being paid to say that. I just like, well, in my opinion, cool things. So happy to share them with you. Now, what I'm trying to do is not working. Oh, there we go. We'll try that one. Mel Saltil, once again, joining us. Thank you. Another one of our number one supporters. Oh, speaking of supporters, if you haven't had a chance to check out our Patreon, that is basically a platform that's kind of like a membership type of platform. It's an opportunity to support what we're trying to achieve here at Witsup. So check it all out. It's patreon.com/Witsup. If you feel like you would like to support what we are doing here, then I'd really appreciate you checking that one out. Okay, moving, just back to 70.3 World Champs. It is in November, so typically we see the 70.3 World Champs before the Ironman World Champs. So I'm curious, what do you think about it being after Kona? Do you think we'll see more people racing because they've got nothing to lose after they've raced at the Ironman World Championships? Do you think we might see less because it's not a build-up to the Ironman? Or maybe, being in New Zealand, is that too far to travel after Kona for a lot of the European and the North American athletes? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. See what your opinions are. I'm super keen to see how this year goes over there. It's going to be an exciting year for sure. Sid has joined us. And that's probably because in about 15 minutes, her and I are going to jump on a phone call. But she has said more people racing post-Olympics. Another fantastic point. Olympics being in August and then 70.3 World Champs in November. I think, that's the reason Flora wanted to qualify very early on in the year, so she could tick that box and then not worry about it until after the Olympics. Very good point, Sid. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, I think we're going to see very exciting 70.3 World Champs in Topor. Sid, fair to say Topor is one of your favourite places in the triathlon world, favourite places to go and race? I think that's fair to say. Sid has just said more people racing because New Zealand is awesome. And back to Jody. Thanks. Check it out. You definitely should. I think it was one of those ones that popped up on my Instagram feed because I happened to mention I like New York and bikes. And so that's how that ad worked. Anyway, if you haven't already, and it feels weird saying this because I am talking about myself, but I did someone interviewed me the other day for our podcast. Her name is Lucy Piper. She was our guest host on the Witsup podcast, and she, to be honest, she did an awesome job interviewing me, just keeping me online, and also, I'm a control freak, so she did a great job keeping me under control. If you feel like listening to that podcast, again, it feels weird sort of talking this up, but go and have a listen. It goes for quite some time because, strangely enough, I love to have a chat. What can I tell you about it? It starts off, a lot of fun, a lot of chatter about how Witsup evolved and why I'm passionate about sport. And then I think it's probably towards the back end of the podcast, probably after I've had a few more reds, it gets a little bit raw, gets a little bit emotional. There were tears for a little bit, but yeah, I blame the red wine and it being late at night. No, I didn't. I don't want to undersell. I got emotional for a reason, so let's just put it that way. So if you feel like listening, check that out over on iTunes. Nadine, thank you for joining us once again. Another one of our number one supporters. Who else have we got here? Allison Diamond. She is married to a Kiwi and believes New Zealand is awesome as well. Whereabouts in New Zealand are you from, Allison? Also, no, you've married a Kiwi. So do you live in New Zealand or have you stolen him or her away from New Zealand? Kate Somerville said needed tissues in your podcast. Sorry. I didn't mean for that to happen. I didn't mean to cry myself, but these things happen. Andy Tyak is watching as well. Andy, hello. Andy has helped us out in the past in terms of doing some tweets from races when he's been following. He's been a supporter from the very, very early days. So g'day to Andy. And we've also got Lindsay Corbin, who's just tuned in briefly. She might be in the middle of a bike ride and just having a bit of a rest to tune in. Surely that's what's happening, Lindsay. Have I nailed it? Possibly. Okay, we need to move on. Where are we up to? Oh, some news. Okay, the Try for Bushfires campaign. So if you haven't been following along, you need to check out the Try for Bushfires campaign that Pete Murray is hosting on his Facebook platform. They have been raising money for a whole bunch of different charities to help support those people who've been affected by the bushfires here in Australia. As of this morning or this afternoon, I think they were up to about $22,000. And what they're doing is a whole bunch of pros and people within the industry have been donating certain items that they've been auctioning off. Things like, I believe, Tim Reed gave a Trek bike that's been auctioned off. There's been Olympic tri-suits that have been signed, helmets, a whole bunch of other things. And it's, like I said, it's all to raise money for those people affected by the bushfires here in Australia. If you have not checked it out yet, I've already linked Pete Murray in the description of this video. Make sure you follow him, jump online, and you can see how you can get involved and place a bid for some of the auction items. Lindsay's just said that she's eating dinner at the moment. Sorry to interrupt your dinner. I assume Lindsay, for those of you who don't know, Lindsay is a bit of a cooking buff, cooking aficionado, cooking machine, loves to be in the kitchen. What is on the dinner plate this evening? And are you always thinking, here's a question for you if you're still tuning in, Lindsay, are you always thinking of protein, carbs, fats for each of your meals? Or does it just get to dinner and you're like, I'm eating what I love to eat and what I love to cook? There you go. Allison, you're in Vancouver. He's from Dunedin. Oh, that's right. You've got one of the giant live stores over in Vancouver, and she loves my bikes. Check them out. So that bottom one there is one of the Envy Lives, and the top one is the Witsup flavored TT bike, which hasn't had a ride in quite some time. I don't even know if I can get into the TT position. Bit of lack of flexibility at the moment. Okay, back to a few more news items. Hi, Tiffa, and hi, Renee. Oh, actually, here's a news item for you. Renee Kiley. Is that how I pronounce your last name? Or is it Keeley? I'm going to go with Kylie. Renee is a professional triathlete who just did an interview on one of the new podcasts out there called the Inside Tri Show from Helen Murray. Now, Helen Murray used to be involved in a very, very popular triathlon podcast called Oxygen Addict, and has since gone out on her own and is doing some fantastic interviews. You need to check it out. The podcast is called Inside Tri Show, and she recently did an interview with Renee, and things got very personal. Renee was very, very open and honest. I think it took her by surprise just how open and honest she got on that podcast, and the topic of body image and eating issues came up, which has led to a few ideas that Helen and I have been throwing around, and we're going to be bringing you a podcast with a bit of a difference over the coming weeks and months, so stay tuned for that. But like I said, check out the Inside Tri podcast by Helen Murray. She's a good mate of ours. She's a brilliant interviewer. She's doing some really cool has been doing some really cool things in the world of triathlon, but is now doing them on her own as well, and we want to sling some support her way. Renee, let us know how you felt about that podcast episode, and how you feel on reflection of that as well. Okay, more news. We've got Challenge World Championship. So last year, the world champion in the Challenge, Sid, help me out here, in the Challenge Championship. So they gather points from a whole bunch of different challenge races. Last year, Radka Karlefeld won that, and she took home an extra prize purse of $30,000 on top of the prize money you win per race. This year, they've upped it to a total of $150,000 so that's the entire prize purse, and the winner will take home $30,000. So that's a combination of races where you gather points, and I think they've added a few more races to that as well. So super exciting, a bit more cash going to professional triathletes if you are in the running for that. Now, if you live under a rock, you would have missed the announcement of the PTO and the Collins Cup securing a financial backer. I think best us not getting stuck into all of that right now. We did an interview with Rachel Joyce, who is the co-president of the PTO, that's the Professional Triathletes Organisation. And she helps sort of explain a whole bunch of other things, but there's still a lot of questions out there. There's quite a few pro triathletes who are a little bit upset that I don't want to downplay it. They're upset that they weren't involved in the process. I think Rachel did her best to try and answer some of those questions. I think what we're going to do here at Witsup is just see how sort of the dust settles over the next week or so, and then we'll see whether more questions can be answered from the PTO. What I can say, though, is from what I understand, they're doing their best from here on in to be as transparent as possible and give answers to those questions. Maybe not all the questions can be answered at the moment. One of the questions that I would love to shout out to Torsten Rad is how exactly do the rankings work? I'm finding that one's a hard one to answer or to find the answer to. I think because we don't have a degree in statistics or numbers or what have you. So I'm looking forward to getting in contact with Torsten to see if he can sort of explain the algorithm a little bit better in terms of how the pro ranking works through the Professional Triathletes Organisation. Sid has just filled me in a little bit more about the challenge family races around the world. Points for races, I think it's a total of 5 or 6 races. And then at the end of the year, that's all tallied up and the payout is huge. So, like I said, Radka Karlefeld won that last year. All right, well, that is about it from me. I was about to say I'd love to go for a bike ride now, but I've got my first parent injury. I think I may have mentioned this to Sid last week. I pulled my shoulder back with Frankie going down a slide, and I've thrown my shoulder out big time. So I can't even hold on to the handlebars properly at the moment. So I won't be doing any riding this week, but hopefully soon. My good friend Mark Bosworth has just tuned in. Hello, Boz of Workout Noosa. Boz has been working with quite a few triathletes up in Noosa. He's a strength and conditioning coach, trainer. He's an age group triathlete, and he's one of my best mates in the world. So hello to Boz. Now, the question I wanted to ask you, and this is sort of on the back of the PTO and the world ranking system. Like I said, a lot of questions about the actual ranking system itself. People don't fully understand how the rankings work. There's a lot of people out there who believe that the ranking is wrong. What I would like to know from you is who would be your top 5 ranked professional triathletes over the long distance. And long distance includes half and full distance. Who do you think? I'd love for you to leave a message below. Let me know who you think, who are the current, they need to be racing, top 5 pro triathletes. Leave now. Leave your who do you think now. Okay, so hopefully people leave a few of those. We'll check that out, and maybe we'll talk about it next week. I think that's about it. I'm going to sign off. Just once again mentioning the sad news of Kobe Bryant. Please give your loved ones an extra special hug today. Hold them tight. Look after yourselves. Stay safe on the road. And we will see you again next week.